Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's May 15th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And just a quick look at our daily chart. We're still pushing forward. We found some temporary resistance here at the original range lows of this daily chart. If we back out here, maybe you can see this a little better. You can see we were in this range. We broke out and had this huge sell-off, and now it looks like we've got to get in here and hold within this range, or we could turn lower. Again, there's a couple of different targets we're looking for. Possibly a measured move equal to the width of the range, which let's look at that one again. That's this one, or I'm sorry, width of the breakout of the range. Maybe we need to move this down a little lower here. And that would put us back around the highs previously. We already did a measured move at plus some. The other target would just be reaching the previous highs and maybe even making a new high here. We had a break and then we never made a new high here. We just sold off. So we may just need to make a new high here. Um, but yeah, we really have taken off on this move up. Let's just see what kind of trend channel we might can get right here. Yeah, you can see we're still in this trend. So we're still working higher. And yeah, I mean, at one time it was hard to believe we could make this target. Now, then this one, and now we're headed towards the next couple of targets. So it is what it is, and this thing may keep going higher. You know, everybody was convinced the market was done and was about to crash and never coming back again. Don't listen to the news. Don't listen to the media. Um, Especially, I mean, you couldn't listen to them when the Democrats were in charge, and now that Trump and the Republicans are in charge, you still can't listen to them because they still lie every breath. And I'm not saying that the Trump's presidency's lying. The media lies. If you read the media, you think that we're about to fall off the cliff and that everything's horrible and that Trump's done a hard. The guy that hadn't been in charge but 100 days or so, 3 months, 3 or 4 months. He hadn't had time to do anything yet. So there's no way you could know if things were that bad. So everything they brought up, they overdo. So just don't. What I'm saying is just don't listen to the media. Do your own research and come to your own conclusions because you'll be closer to the truth. Because you just can't believe anything they say. And so anyway, we're still headed higher. That's the point I'm trying to make here. Is we're still headed higher. This is still bullish. So stay with it until the market gives us something different. It looks like we're going higher yet still here. So let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart and take a look at it, and we'll go through the trades. But another bullish day. It looked like we were going to sell off or be in a range, but we pushed forward. So let's flip over there and take a look. Okay, here's our 2000 tick chart. You can see we did have some high volatility news around 7:30 this morning. And again at 7:40, but that was just a speaker. So really all you're worried about is 7:30. I marked that off here. I don't think I marked that off on my original chart this morning um, that I send out and post on the website, but there was a news item there. So you had to kind of sit tight till after that. But we started off just chopping sideways in a tight range, and we broke out here, and this thing rallied strongly. And then just kind of went sideways for the rest of the day, but closed on its high. So pretty good trading day. Not a ton of trades here, but there's some nice trades, especially there were a couple early that maybe if you catch, you're done early today. And we will have one small learning opportunity that somebody sent me a trade on. I marked it here, and we'll talk about it when we get to it. But let's zoom in here. Again, um, you had to be flat around 715, 720 for sure. So you really didn't get a chance to trade anything here, but we're in an uptrend, and we break out and come back, and you get a first entry, and then pull back and a break above. Here's a second entry. Let me zoom in a little more where this is easier to see. I'm sorry. And this was an engulfing bar. You got to wait for this to close. This is not a perfect signal bar, but I think it's close enough. I mean, I think that you could third that, and we close in the upper third. It's pushing it, so I made it green, but it is a second entry. It is off the key entry point. So, you know, if you decide you want to take it, I think you're fine to take that trade, and it does work. It actually gives you a pretty good move, and then we come back and we get another first entry followed by a second entry. Take that one for sure. It takes it a minute, but it works out too, and it comes back and tests the high and then turns down. We don't quite get a new high. I don't think we get a new high there, do we? I didn't think we did, but I just want to verify to make sure I'm not wrong. That's 98.50 on that high. And 98. Well, we did get a new high. I didn't catch that in real time. I thought we made a double top there, but we made a new high. I still don't think you want to go short there. You need to wait on a lower high. None of these really set up with a good signal bar. So we come down here. We actually get a triple test. I think you could argue we had a triple test, but that signal bar is not good enough. And then by the time we get this, it's just too congested and sideways. So I think you have to sit tight there. We rally up here and break out. And of course, most breakouts fail, but you don't really get a chance to go short there. None of those set up well either. We do get a first entry, second entry here, but again, you can't enter that on the engulfing bar, and you got too much stem here and too big a bar. I think you've moved too far. I just think you got to sit tight on this. I mean, it's 26 ticks. It's got a lot of stem, and you see it's just not worth taking. If you took it, you would have taken a loss. So just sit tight, wait on something better than that. Then we run back up here and we break out again. And there's a couple of different ways to look at this. I drew a trend line for both of these, but it really looks like a leg up with a break and then a move to a new high followed by a lower high. But technically this is two legs up, and so almost feels like two separate moves up here. And you see we do get a close outside and new high, and so it would have been nice to get a setup there, but you don't get it. Then we run up. So now you got another trend working up, and you get a close outside a new high all in one bar. It's a very bearish bar, so I like going short there and just calling that a second entry. But even if you don't, you get a second entry here, and you get a double. You really could almost argue there's a triple test across there. I just think you trade that as a double top, basically, and you're fine. A failed breakout. And this one broke higher early. Again, you could not trade that on the engulfing bar. And again, it's a really big bar, but here you got a lower high, so I think if you wanted to take that one, you could. Whether or not you wanted to risk that on 19 tick bar, I mean, it's a little better than the one we had over here that was 26. So, but I wouldn't have a problem going short there. And especially after a failed breakout. And this is a lower double top than the original high, so there's a good chance you're going lower here. And of course, you're moving down. Let's move this up. You get a close outside, move to a new low. You might go long here, but you're not back down to the lows, and so I think you just have to wait, and it runs back to the highs. Now, this is our learning opportunity for the day. A trader, there's a second entry right here, and I think if I remember right on this chart, he had a much better signal bar. I think his signal bar would have qualified. And he goes short there on that second entry, and of course, he gets stopped out. But what you got to understand is we're not chart traders. I mean, we're not pattern traders. We're chart readers. And the chart has to agree with the trade. So even if you had a good signal bar here, you can clearly see we're still in this uptrend channel here. But better than that, where would you expect it to turn down? Off the highs of the range. You're not back to the range yet. So you hadn't met your target yet, and this trend channel has not played out yet either. Now, sometimes if it was right off the resistance, you may not care if you got a good signal bar in a second entry, because the range is probably going to take precedence, or you expect that it might. So, but in this case, since we're not back, you want this trend channel to play out. And notice you get your close outside, move to a new high, and you get a nice signal bar right off this resistance. Now you can go short. Now, guess what? This one reverses too, but the key here is you don't get stopped out on this one. You at least get your scalp. And you can see that moved to almost 3 points before it reversed. and we got a little spike. This turned out to be a spike in channel up, and this was a really strong channel up as well. And so hopefully you understand there why you don't go short. You're looking for things to happen at certain places. You're not just looking for second entries. I'm not saying this trader that's all he was doing, but my guess is he saw a second entry and he took it. But that's not how this works. Your second entry has to be occurring and agreeing with the chart read. And he actually had a trend channel down. I think he had marked this as a trend. But the way his trend was, he was not back. Well, you can see right there. I mean, maybe there's a trend there, but it doesn't follow through. It fails. Personally, I think you're better off to play the range and play the short-term stuff. But I just don't see a trend here. If we had, this would have probably held. But you can see he went short here, and you're not back to that trend line yet. Even if you pull it down right at the closes, it's not back there yet. So you have not met your target yet. So you want prices to meet the target and then give you your setup. So even if you do follow that range, that trend channel, you're not back to the trend line yet. And so you're going short early. And that's what the most important thing when you're taking a trade. Even if you're reading it right, your timing has to be right. So you have to not only think about where you're entering, it has to be timing, and you were just too early here. It was a second entry, but it was just a trap is all it was. I mean, it doesn't look that good on my chart. I wouldn't have taken that trade. It doesn't even qualify for a trade because there's no signal bar there that meets on mine. But I'm pretty sure he had a good signal bar. And he does get to close outside, but then it moves to the new high. And where does it turn out? Right where you're expecting it to. And so this trade works before it shoots higher again. And these are all first entries. Now there is a second entry right here. Notice this new high, and you get a first entry and it turns back down. So when this bar shoots by, that's a second entry long, but this is congested sideways. You're way away from the EMA. I just don't think you can risk that. Now if it continues to be strong like that, maybe you consider, we talk about this when you get these, it's usually really tight trends that are like only one that are real tight and that they just keep going higher and higher, and just about every signal bar that comes back to the trend line you can almost take. It's a good signal bar, that is. So that would be a good signal bar, but I don't think you've had enough time to see how strong this is yet. And it's not a real tight channel either. It's a little wider. So only other time it comes back is here, and there's no setup there anyway. And then you get to break. It tries to go lower and gives you a higher low right here, but you're expecting a retest of this high. There's a failure here, but it's not where you're looking to take one. And prices make a new high, but it comes back 2 legs back, and it gives you another setup here for a possible second entry long. It doesn't actually trigger till here, and you can't go long right there. You've got your channel working down, and look how congested that is. Now everything's closing back at the trend line until finally you break out. It does make a higher low, and if you'd had a good signal bar here, I'd say go long, but you don't get it. And it does make 2 legs up, and it reverses. It looks like there's a bit of an overshoot here as well, but I think it's still dangerous to go short here because you don't have a break of this. It looks like you end up with a big spike and this was too steep, so we folded over into this channel, trend channel. But you might go short there. I just think you're being risky, and you're taking a chance going short there. So, but you are a little ways away from the EMA. You do have 2 legs up here. It does look like we had an overshoot as well. So there's reasons to consider going short there. And then we drop down. You get a close outside new low, and notice you get a triple test here, and you've had your break in new low, and you would expect prices to probably try to retest this high because this was a pretty good move up from way down here. And so you would expect a retest there, even with even with an overshoot that's as mild as that one. And so I like going long there. You get another touch here, but the signal bar doesn't qualify. It just kind of takes off. And again, these are all first entries except for this one, and this is the same thing we saw earlier, just sideways. You can't go long right there. It's just too risky. Uh, and then we pull back and make one more push up. So we had the break and at least a couple of swings up, and you turn down and you make a lower high right here. Notice how close this is to this other high. That's a tradable lower high, good signal bar. Let's go short there. And if it may take off and it may just bounce at the EMA again, but I think you have to take that short. If you're seasoned enough to take a trade like that. Most of you probably better off to wait till the trend line gets confirmed, and but there's no setup there, so your next one would be the lower high here. But watch what happens when notice that we made a lower swing low here. That's giving you more confirmation. Then we get two legs back and we confirm this trend line too. So hey, now you can say pretty safely, hey, we've switched to a downtrend now. There is a second entry there. It looks like you could even argue there's a close outside, but it's just not a good enough signal bar. Hey, let's hope we get a lower high. And sure enough, you get a lower high right here with a nice signal bar. Just go short. Again, this one moved pretty quick, so you might have to use a limit order to get in it, and you may still not get in it. But if you can get in that trade, you want to get in it. We continue working lower. There's even a smaller, shorter term channel working down, close outside, a couple of swings to a new low, and then we're headed higher here. And we get a break of the trend channel here as well. I don't think you want to pick a bottom down here. If you had a higher low that was a pretty good setup, you might consider it, but I think we've turned out too bullish here to be trying to pick a bottom now. If we were still in a range, yeah, you might go long down here. This trend's up, gives you your break of the main trend line, close outside new high, and that is a second entry short. I think this still closes in the lower 1/3, but the reason I like this trade is that it is a first entry and the second entry, but I think you almost have to take this on the engulfing bar, and that's not for everybody. Most of you need to avoid those. That's for the very advanced traders. And so I marked it green. Most of you are better off to wait on a lower high, and you could consider this a lower high, but the signal bar is no good. And then we bounce down here a few times. Now there is a triple test here, but we've been working lower, and we're expecting prices to go lower. So you really need a good setup. And you can see there's not enough room there to scalp out. And you see it does turn back down. You would have got your scalp in the end, but you can't risk it there. So you got to wait. And then notice you get a triple test on the side you want to get one on, because we're in a downtrend and we're expecting prices to retest this low. So that's where you go short, and that's a nice move down. It fails out the bottom again. Again, I did not mark this one. Now this, there's plenty of room to get out here, so you could argue for that to be green. I think you're better off to wait on the higher low, which comes here, and then it looks congested. Does that signal bar qualify? It's close. Maybe it closes in its upper 1/3, but it's borderline and it's sideways there. That doesn't look like prices are going to reject and go higher to me. Highlighted everything but what I wanted to. And it runs up here and fails out the upper side, but there's no setup, and the bottom just kind of falls out. Now somebody will probably say, why didn't you go short right here? Well, that's just a first entry with not very much room. Why would you go short there? It doesn't really fit our entry criteria. You might even argue there's a close outside there. And then of course we bounce. I wouldn't be trying to pick a bottom here. I really think that it's probably more like that right there. And so, but we do close outside here, pull back, and we make a higher low. We're still got plenty of room back to the EMA. Now this is just after 2:30, but it's like only seconds. So I think you're safe to take that one if you want to, and that's a quick, easy move up. And you don't have to exit just because it's 2:30. You just don't want to take any new trades after 2:30, and I think this one's right there on the borderline. So if you wanted to take it, you could. And if you did and wrote it out, you know, Depending on how, I don't know if I'd have wrote it out through this side, all this sideways stuff. I might have tried to get further than this. Um, Once you started going sideways, you might have just taken a profit in there somewhere. I don't know. If you held on to it, you could have ridden it almost all the way to back to the closed on these highs up here before you exited. But there it is. Um, Mostly up from early in the morning with some sideways movements there right after the open, and then some more really from about noon time on. We're just kind of working sideways there, but we do close closer to the highs and the lows. So um, not a bad trading day. Just remember, this trader that sent me this and anybody else that was paying attention when I was describing the problem there, just remember, we're not pattern traders. You'll never make money trading patterns because the best, probably one of the most powerful patterns we have is the two-legged pullback, which we call the second entry. Those things are powerful. Even when you get them wrong, sometimes you still make money. They probably work 50% of the time, maybe even more than that. But if you're not trading them properly, they're still going to be losers. If you're counter trend trading them or trading them in the wrong places or against the opposite of what the chart's telling us, then you're still going to have a lot of losers trade. You can't trade patterns and consistently make money. You're never going to do it. So don't even try. You got to learn to read the chart. The only way you're ever going to make money as a day trader, if you don't ever hear anything else I say, make sure you understand this. The only way you're ever going to make money as a day trader is to learn to read the chart. There's no pattern that's ever going to work consistently enough. There's no setup. There's no indicator. There's no software. There's nothing that works consistently enough to make money other than the ability to read the chart and understand price movements. Anybody making money understands price movements and pretty much understands how to interpret this chart. They may not call it price action. They may not call it price action trading or any of that, but that's what it is, whether they call it that or not. And if they're not, if they can't do that, they're probably not consistently making money. Maybe they've made a pattern and they found a pattern like the second entry that works more than most things, and maybe they make a little money here and there, but they probably give it back before it's over. They're not consistently making money every day trading those patterns or those indicators or that software or anything else somebody dreams up. I've seen it all. There's people that claim that, the stars can tell you the trades, or one of the ones that I saw that seemed interesting one time was somebody said they discovered a Bible code that would tell you how to trade, and they showed all this stuff, and it looked really legitimate, but it's just wishful thinking, and people want to believe it, and they fall for it. Just don't fall for it. The only way to make money as a day trader is to learn to read this chart and to have a good understanding of how price movements work, and they don't follow common sense. That's why it's so difficult. Your common sense you've reinforced it over the years, because if you follow common sense, it usually keeps you from getting injured, from making bad mistakes of any kind, monetarily, physically, emotionally, relationship-wise. If you follow your common sense and have good common sense, you've reinforced it over and over in your life through all of those things. And so it's honed into your DNA to follow your common sense. But if you use your common sense and follow it in trading, guess what? You're going to fail, and you're going to fail miserably, because prices don't move based on common sense. They move based on the motions of thousands of traders all interacting at one time. But guess what? You can learn to understand and come up with a set of rules that help with that. And that's what we've done. But you've got to learn those and follow them and know how to see them and understand the rest of the chart. And I can teach you that part. The part I can't teach you is how to be disciplined enough that you have to find that within yourself. You gotta dig deep and to that test what I call intestinal fortitude and be able to be disciplined and patient enough to say I got to wait on the right trade and I got to be able to see the right setup and I've got to understand what the chart's telling me. If you can do those three things consistently, you can make money trading. There's no other way. That's my opinion. Others may tell you differently, but I promise you, if you go try what they're telling you, I'm 99% sure it won't work. If it doesn't involve understanding price movements and how to read the chart. If you can get that part down, you got it. If you can continue to have the discipline and pay, because sometimes you got to wait. I mean, from right here, this trade happened at, that looks like let's just call that 950. Well, you had to sit tight until 10:30, almost 50 minutes, almost an hour. And then you had to sit tight from 10:30 to 11:30. You had to sit there for another hour. Maybe you took this one, it wasn't quite an hour. And then from 11:30, you had to sit tight to 12:30, another hour. And most traders cannot sit there an hour without concocting up some crazy reason to take a trade. Or they just get too antsy and can't stand it and have to take a trade. But anyway, we're almost 30 minutes here. I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thursday. That we'll wrap up our week tomorrow. No chart lessons on Fridays. Hope you had a good trading day. Hope you learned something today. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.